When the world turns its back. Mira learned early that love could disappear without warning. When her mother was alive, their small apartment felt warm, even when money was tight. Laughter filled the kitchen. Hope lived in simple things. But the night her mother never came home from the hospital, that warmth vanished forever. Her stepfather changed first. His grief turned into bitterness, and his bitterness turned into blame. Every unpaid bill became Myra's fault. Every bad day needed someone to punish. Her stepsister followed his lead, mocking Mira for her worn clothes and quiet nature. "You're useless," she liked to say. "You don't belong here." Mira tried to survive quietly. She cleaned houses, washed dishes, and took whatever small jobs she could find. But every coin she earned was taken from her. When she protested, she was reminded that she owed them everything: food, shelter, breath. Slowly she stopped arguing. Silence was safer. One freezing evening, she came home late from a cleaning job to find strangers sitting in the living room. Well-dressed men. Cold eyes. The air felt wrong. Her stepfather wouldn't look at her. "She'll do," one of the men said calmly, as if she were furniture. That was the moment Mira understood. She wasn't family anymore. She was payment. Fear flooded her chest, but she didn't scream. She didn't beg. Something inside her broke too quietly for anyone to notice. When she turned to her stepsister, hoping, just once, for protection, she only saw indifference. "Someone has to fix this," her stepsister said with a shrug. That night Mira ran. She took nothing with her. No bag. No phone. No coat thick enough for the cold. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs shook. She ran until the streets blurred and the city felt endless. By dawn she had nowhere left to go. Days passed. Hunger became normal. The city became cruel. People avoided her gaze. Some spat words sharper than knives. Others acted as if she didn't exist at all. Shelters were full. Benches were guarded. Nights were the worst. On the fourth night, as snow began to fall, Mira walked toward the old bridge at the edge of the city. Cars passed without slowing. The river below was black and endless, swallowing light. She stood there for a long time. Her hands trembled, not just from the cold but from exhaustion. From betrayal. From the deep, aching loneliness of realizing no one was coming to save her. She thought of her mother. She thought of the girl she used to be. "I'm tired," she whispered into the wind. When she climbed over the railing, no one noticed. No one shouted. No one ran toward her. She closed her eyes and stepped forward. The fall felt endless. Wind tore past her ears. Her heart screamed inside her chest. For one brief moment she felt relief. The world would stop hurting. Then everything stopped. Not with pain. Not with impact. With arms. Strong, unyielding arms caught her in midair, snapping her fall to nothing. The sudden stillness stole the breath from her lungs. Mira gasped, her body frozen between sky and death. She opened her eyes. A man hovered in the darkness, holding her as if gravity did not exist. His face was pale, sharp, and impossibly calm. His eyes burned a deep crimson, glowing softly in the night. The wind moved around him, not against him. "Let me go," Mira whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. The man looked at her, not with cruelty, not with desire, but with something older. He leaned closer, his voice low and steady. "You jumped to escape monsters," he said, "and fell into my world instead." Her breath shook. "I don't want to live." His grip tightened slightly, not painfully but with certainty. "You don't get to decide that alone," he replied. In a blur of motion faster than thought, the world spun. The bridge disappeared beneath them as the night swallowed the city lights. Mira screamed once, then darkness took her. Far above the river, the vampire king carried a broken girl into destiny. The king who ruled the night. Mira woke slowly as if rising through deep water. The first thing she noticed was warmth. Not the harsh heat of a fire, but a steady, gentle warmth that wrapped around her body like protection. The second thing she noticed was silence. No traffic. No shouting. No cold wind cutting through her clothes. She opened her eyes. Above her was a ceiling carved from dark stone, etched with ancient symbols that glowed faintly in gold. Heavy velvet curtains framed tall windows, though outside them there was only darkness. She lay on a bed larger than anything she had ever known, its sheets soft and clean, smelling faintly of jasmine and something unfamiliar, something old. Her heart raced. She pushed herself upright, clutching the blanket to her chest. She was alive. The memory of the fall rushed back. The bridge. The wind. The arms that caught her midair. The crimson eyes. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, her bare feet sinking into thick carpet. She was wearing a simple white gown, nothing torn, nothing dirty. Her old clothes were gone. "Where am I?" she whispered. The door opened soundlessly. A tall man stepped inside. He wore black from head to toe, his presence commanding the room without effort. The light from the wall lamps caught his face, revealing sharp features and eyes darker now, but still unmistakably red beneath the surface. It was him. Mira froze. "You are safe," he said calmly. "Safe?" The word felt strange. Unbelievable. She backed away until her knees hit the bed. You took me," she said. "I didn't ask you to save me." "No," he replied. "You didn't." He stopped several steps away, keeping his distance. She noticed that. It confused her. "I am King Alaric," he said, "ruler of this domain." Her breath caught. A king. A vampire. The realization settled heavily in her chest, but fear did not overwhelm her the way she expected. Instead she felt something else, uncertainty. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why save someone like me?" Alaric studied her in silence. When he spoke again, his voice carried weight, as if each word had been chosen carefully. "Because you were thrown away," he said. "And I despise waste." Mira flinched at the bluntness, but there was no cruelty in his tone. Just truth. "You are in my castle," he continued. "No one from your past can reach you here. No contract binds you. No debt follows you." She shook her head. "That's not possible. They always find a way." "Not this time," he said firmly. Hunger twisted her stomach, sharp and sudden. She tried to hide it, but Alaric noticed. Food appeared minutes later. Warm bread. Soup. Fruit. She ate slowly, afraid it would disappear if she moved too fast. No one had fed her like this in years. Alaric did not watch her eat. He stood near the window, his back turned, giving her dignity she wasn't used to receiving. "You may stay," he said. "Or you may leave when the sun rises." Hope flared, and fear crushed it instantly. "Leave to where?" she asked. His silence was answer enough. That night, Mira lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar quiet. For the first time in years no one yelled her name. No one demanded anything from her. No one hurt her. Somewhere in the castle, King Alaric walked alone through halls older than memory. He had ruled with iron will for centuries. He had seen humans break, beg, and betray. He had sworn never to care again. Yet the image of a fragile girl stepping off a bridge, choosing death over chains, refused to leave his mind. He did not understand why he had caught her. Only that letting her fall had never been an option. By dawn Mira made her choice. She stayed. Not because she trusted him, but because, for the first time in her life, staying felt less dangerous than running. And somewhere deep within the shadows of the castle, the vampire king felt something he had not felt in centuries. Change. The girl the shadows rejected. Mira quickly learned that safety did not mean acceptance. The castle was beautiful, but it was not kind. Whispers followed her through the corridors. Pale eyes watched her from balconies and dark corners. Servants bowed to King Alaric, but barely acknowledged her presence. To them she was an outsider. A fragile human in a world built for monsters. Some looked at her with curiosity. Others with hunger. She kept her head down just as she had learned to do on the streets. She helped where she could, carrying linens, tending to the gardens that survived beneath enchanted glass ceilings, offering gentle words to servants who flinched when others barked orders. Kindness was the only language she knew how to speak. It unsettled them. "She doesn't belong here," one vampire whispered as Mira passed. "She smells like fear," another said coldly. "She is weak," a third sneered. "And weakness invites chaos." Mira heard it all. She always did. One evening, while carrying a basket of herbs through a side hall, a tall vampire stepped into her path. His eyes glowed brighter than Alaric's had that first night, sharp, cruel, amused. "You must be very special," he said softly, "for the king to pull you from death." Mira swallowed. "Please let me pass." He leaned closer, inhaling slowly. "Your blood is different." Before she could step back, the air shifted. The vampire was suddenly slammed against the stone wall with bone-crushing force. King Alaric stood between them, his presence like a storm barely contained. "You will not touch what is under my protection," he said, his voice deadly quiet. The hall fell silent. The vampire bowed stiffly and disappeared without another word. Myra's hands shook. Alaric turned to her. For a moment she expected anger. Instead his expression softened, just slightly. "You should not walk alone at night," he said. "I didn't know," she replied, her voice small. I'm sorry. You have nothing to apologize for, he said firmly. That was when she realized something dangerous. The king was not just protecting her out of obligation. He was choosing her. Days passed. Then weeks. Mira began to change, not outwardly but inside. She no longer flinched at every raised voice. She spoke more. She laughed once, softly, surprised by the sound of it herself. Alaric noticed everything. He noticed how she treated servants as equals. How she fed the ravens on the balcony. How she thanked guards who were centuries older than her. She weakens you, members of the vampire court warned him. She makes you hesitate, they said. She is a liability. Alaric ignored them. For the first time in centuries, the king found himself lingering in sunlight rooms he never used before. Rooms where Mira liked to sit and read old books she barely understood. He did not speak much. Neither did she. But silence with her felt different. One night, the vampire council arrived without warning. Ancient beings cloaked in power filled the grand hall, their gazes sharp and calculating. They circled Mira slowly as predators do. A human, one of them hissed. In the king's care. She is under my protection, Alaric said, his voice echoing through the hall. For how long? Another asked. Until she becomes a weakness your enemies exploit? Mira felt the weight of every stare. Old fear crept back into her chest. She had seen this before. Powerful people deciding her worth. She stepped forward before she could stop herself. I won't be your weakness, she said quietly. If my presence endangers him, I will leave. The hall went still. Alaric turned sharply. You will do no such thing. Mira met his gaze, her hands trembling but her spine straight. I won't be the reason you fall. Something ancient shifted in the king's eyes. She is not my weakness, Alaric declared. She is my proof. The council said nothing more. That night, as Mira stood alone on the balcony staring at the moon, Alaric joined her. You didn't have to speak, he said. I did, she replied softly. I've been silent my whole life. He studied her, then nodded once, an acknowledgement more powerful than praise. In saving her, Alaric had defied fate. In standing beside him, Mira had begun to claim her own power. And the castle, ancient and watchful, seemed to hold its breath, knowing that neither of them would ever be the same again. The night she chose him. The attack came without warning. Mira was in the lower gardens just after dusk, trimming frost-touched leaves the way she had been taught. The air was quiet, too quiet. Even the ravens had gone silent. She felt it before she saw it. A sharp pressure closed around her chest, stealing her breath. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the stone path, twisting into forms that moved against the light. Rival vampires. They emerged from the darkness with smiles that held no warmth. The king grows careless, one of them said. Protecting a human. Myra's heart pounded, but she did not scream. She had learned long ago that fear fed cruelty. If you want him, she said, her voice trembling but clear, you won't get him through me. They laughed. Pain exploded through her side as she was thrown to the ground. Cold stone cut into her skin. She tasted blood, not from a bite but from her own lip. Then the night shook. King Alaric arrived like a living storm. The ground cracked beneath his feet as he moved, faster than sight, his eyes blazing crimson. His power flooded the garden, ancient and absolute. He did not speak. He destroyed them. When the last of the attackers vanished into ash and shadow, Alaric turned to Mira. She was curled against the stone, shaking, blood on her hands. He dropped to his knees beside her. For the first time since she had known him, his voice broke. Are you hurt? She nodded, then shook her head. I didn't want them to use me against you. His hands hovered near her, unsure, as if afraid to touch her. You were never a weapon, he said quietly. You are not bait. You are not a burden. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Everyone says that, until I matter too much. Alaric closed the distance between them then, wrapping his coat around her shoulders, grounding her shaking body against his solid presence. Look at me, he said. She did. I ruled alone for centuries, he continued. Power without connection. Fear without purpose. You did not weaken me, Mira. You reminded me why I protect this world at all. Her breath caught. He helped her to her feet and brought her to the highest tower of the castle, where moonlight poured through tall windows like silver rain. He treated her injuries himself, gentle, precise, patient. No one had ever touched her like that. Not to take. Not to own. Only to care. Later that night, Mira stood at the balcony again, staring at the moon that had once watched her fall. I would have died, she said softly. If you hadn't been there. Alaric stepped beside her. And I would have remained hollow, he replied. If you had. Silence stretched between them, not empty but full. Slowly Mira reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm. His were cold. Neither pulled away. The bond between them was no longer unspoken. Enemies had drawn blood. The king had chosen her openly. And Mira, the girl who once believed she was nothing, had chosen him in return. The world beyond the castle would not forgive this. But for the first time Mira was no longer afraid of what came next. When the broken rise. The world did not remain silent after the attack. Word spread quickly through the supernatural realms that King Alaric had destroyed his rivals without hesitation, and for a human girl. Some called it madness. Others called it weakness. The Vampire Council called it a challenge. They summoned the king to stand judgment, demanding that Mira be presented before them. Not as a guest. Not as a protected soul. But as proof of his failure. Mira knew what that meant. She stood beside Alaric in the grand hall, her hands steady even as ancient eyes weighed her worth. The council spoke of balance, of tradition, of rules written in blood long before she was born. She endangers your rule, one elder said coldly. She is human, another added. Temporary. Fragile. Mira stepped forward before Alaric could speak. I was fragile, she said quietly, because the world taught me I was disposable. The hall stilled. I was beaten, sold, and abandoned. Not because I was weak, but because others were cruel. She lifted her chin. If kindness is a crime, then I am guilty. If surviving makes me dangerous, then I accept that too. The council expected fear. They found strength instead. Alaric moved to her side, his presence firm and unmistakable. She stands here by choice, he said. Not as property. Not as leverage. But as my equal. The elders argued. Threatened. Calculated. And then Alaric did something no vampire king had done in centuries. He offered his crown. If my rule cannot protect the innocent, he said, voice echoing through the hall, then it does not deserve to stand. Silence followed, heavy and absolute. The council retreated. Not because of fear. But because power that can be surrendered willingly is power that cannot be broken. Justice came swiftly after. Mira's family was exposed, debts, cruelty, and crimes laid bare. Those who had sold her faced consequences they could no longer escape. The world finally saw the truth Mira had lived with in silence. She felt no joy in their fall. Only freedom. Weeks later, under a sky lit with stars, Mira stood once more at the castle balcony. This time she was not cold. She was not afraid. She was not alone. You saved me, she said softly. Alaric shook his head. You saved yourself. I only caught you before the fall. He did not promise forever. He did not bind her with vows or blood. Instead he knelt. Not as a king, but as a man. You are free, he said. To stay. To leave. To choose. Mira looked at the world she had been given. Respect, safety, and a future shaped by her own will. She chose. I will stay, she said. Not because I was rescued. But because I belong. Alaric rose, taking her hand, not to claim her, but to walk beside her. The girl who once stood on a bridge believing she was nothing now stood at the heart of an immortal kingdom. Unbroken, unowned, and undefeated. Her story did not begin with power. It began with survival. And it ended with choice.